as far as the blog posts and the content that Steve and I will be pushing out over the next couple months, um, I think naturally they're going to be aligned to if you follow that list structure because there's just ways to easily align everything we're trying
Yeah,
to talk about.
I
Um,
wouldn't worry. So like one thing that I think for you guys, don't worry about so if we looked at that overall structure of the project overview, I did this on purpose. And Steve, do you see this one?
Yeah, you develop your home office.
Yeah, I think I wrote that particular line in like 2014 or something like that. Um, because what I realized, and if you actually look at this, it's pretty like imagine if you had access. I would like to think, imagine if I had access to really uh, high production value material. I mean, if you haven't read this in a while, right?
Yeah. Oh, and Jeff, I had a question.
Yeah.
You said I didn't hear what specifically you said you were going to delegate to your students in the future.
Oh, not delegate. So, one of the models for YouTube is to become the sage on the stage. So, there's a lot of YouTube community members that will like highlight themselves as the example of success, right? That is one model, but I don't think that it is the model that, I mean, I definitely think it's important from the standpoint of like giving people insights to who I am and how I work and being vulnerable. Like I definitely want to be vulnerable and show, just be authentic basically, right? Like who am I and how do I show up in this world? But from the standpoint of inspiring students, I think diversity in representation is really important for the learning code. So one of the practices that I want to get in the habit of doing is finding examples of students who exhibit really, really strong practices and perhaps even metacognitive understanding of the principles behind those practices and letting them speak for themselves to channel some of what we're doing in the learning code. To do that, I think it's good that we're building a platform because we can, as I interact with students and as you guys interact with students, we can then do those interviews. And I would say that's much more like the video, as I'm learning about video influencers, they do that a lot, right? They find YouTube influencers and they interview them as a way to highlight different ideas that are on YouTube and then also bring creativity into it. I'm not particularly worried right now. Video influencers is a business plan as much as it is a YouTube channel. And I respect that. What I'm thinking a lot about when I'm talking about this is system navigation and system transformation. And so that's right now, that would be my major focus, that I can develop habits on a daily basis. When I interact with about 120 students a quarter, 360 students a year, new, and then I have ongoing relationships with many students, I am always astounded at how bright and capable my students are. And I don't currently have a robust capture system to be able to get those students to show others what they show me. And so that's the statement that I was making, Steve, that right now in the early stages, as I write my blog posts, some of the videos that I'm going to make are going to be centered on my own practices. Part of that is just because I have to build, I'm partitioning cognitive load right now. It is much easier for me to learn and develop systems of video production when the only person I'm coordinating is myself than it is to learn how to do that as I'm having to send emails, coordinate timing, coordinate, right? And so in the early stages, as I ramp up to the next level of production, I'm going to focus on making sure those blog posts are done, and then also hitting different media outlets with the blog post. So blog, hopefully at some point Spotify, and also videos. And then eventually I think I'll get good enough that the interviews that I'm doing don't have to be about my own practices. They can be highlighting practices of student success, I suppose, or student experiences that I actually engage with on a week-to-week basis or day-to-day basis in my professional life.
because it's within those testimonies that they are literally doing, or perhaps struggling to do, some of the things we're preaching.
Yeah,
So,
and so often, yes, yeah. Did that answer that question?
What about you, Jeff? I'm sure you integrate it.
So here's a question I have for you. What does that tell you about the act of lecture?
It's not efficient. Well, I know, like, oh, I was gonna say, if I think I'm more proactive than a lot of students, at least that I know. And so if I can do it and I'm having trouble engaging, then I'm gonna say a lot of students out there, more than half, are struggling to engage. So it's not really an efficient system to.
So the first thing that I want to say is, we last week we highlighted that paper by, I think, a guy named Scott Freeman. That paper actually justifies as scientifically as possible. It's, all teaching is subjective anyways, but it does a metacognitive analysis of 225 papers that basically say lecturing is to learning health what cigarettes are to physical health. Like, it's a shitty system, right? And another problem that I haven't seen addressed in the research literature from the standpoint of like quantitative statistical analysis to justify that this is true, right? The 4-year degree was created, I mean, formally speaking, like 1930s, 1940s. But we've had like 90 years of technological development from that, and we haven't changed the structure of that degree. And so what ends up happening is it's the 5-pound bag problem. You're trying to fit 20 pounds of manure into a 5-pound bag. Well, guess what? 5 pounds can't fit 20 pounds. It just doesn't happen, right? And, a lot of teachers will think just because they can talk fast, students are understanding. But the issue that you're noticing, Henry, is like learning doesn't happen on a schedule that's defined by the teacher prior to starting. Learning happens when you actually sit down to learn. And this is, I know you said something really relevant last time, but I do think it's worth mentioning. You said, I wanted to show myself and Osama and all the students that I could do this, and I wanted to get ready to grad school. And I get that. This is a joke. It's meant to make you laugh, but would you agree that getting hit in the face and being able to like survive it makes me tough? Okay. So then I could hit myself in the face really, really hard until I'm bleeding and show other people how tough I am, right? But if I already know what that's going to feel like, and I know that I can survive that, is that a necessary exercise for showing toughness? Like, in fact, maybe I would want to like reorient, especially if I know some of the dangers associated with that, right? Like a broken nose, bloody, And the same thing is true, like I understand the idea, especially I understand it because I went through it. Like we want to prove to ourselves that we're capable, right?